And welcome to another episode of Patriots 4th and 2. I am your host today, Derek Havens, and joining me, as always, is Mr. Steve Balestrieri. We are both PatsFans.com bloggers. Today's episode, we are going to be discussing the Patriots' 34-0 home loss to the New Orleans Saints, as well as kind of having an open discussion and talking about really where the team is right now, and kind of the state of the team, and looking ahead to obviously this week's matchup at 4:05 against the Las Vegas Raiders. Before we get into everything, and we do have plenty to talk about, I want to thank everyone who's joining us live, and also Steve, how are we doing today?
We're doing good. It's a rough time to be a Patriots fan, but
But the sun did come up today.
It did. It's shining. At 5 o'clock this morning, we were in a torrential downpour, but now the sun's shining. There's a nice breeze blowing. So, hey, it's a beautiful fall day here.
There you go. What's a fall day in Florida, Steve? What are we looking at? What kind of temps?
Yesterday, the low temperature was like 68.
Oh, wow.
And everyone was like rejoicing because but then yesterday got up really hot and humid. Today, right now, it's probably low 80s right now, but with the breeze, it feels pretty good outside.
I was going to say, I took the dog out this morning, and it was in the 60s. Right now, it's 71 right out here in Scottsdale, Arizona. So we're not experiencing traditional fall, although too much of my wife's chagrin.
That's the part I miss most in weather time is the fall up in New England. So
100%. And if anyone's wondering why we're talking about weather, it's because we have nothing but negative things to say from here on out. So I called Steve. Actually, I texted Steve on Sunday evening, and I said I was just so angry I didn't even want to talk. Which, if you know me personally, you know that that's a rarity. And if you know Steve's in our relationship, you also know that's a rarity. So I'm surprised I didn't have a wellness check. When I was watching, after I'd watched the game, and immediately after the game was over, Steve, I did a couple other things, and then in the evening I sat back down and I rewatched the entire game. And
I did too, and it didn't look any better.
No. I was like, maybe I was just being a little overreactionary. No. It was actually worse when you kind of go through everything. And look, let's just dive right into it. Okay. We talked about the previous week, 38-3, you lose to Dallas. Everyone's, you're going home. People are expecting to kind of have a little bit of a bounce back game. Like, okay, every once in a while you're going to have a bad beat like that. And instead of it being a close, tough, game at home, you get absolutely waxed. I mean, it really was pretty non-competitive. I mean, from the second drive when Mac Jones had yet another turnover and it turned into a pick six via Tyrann Mathieu, the game felt almost out of reach at that point. And I know it really wasn't, but just the way the offense has moved the ball. I mean, in the last 10 quarters, Steve, the team's put up 8 points, and 2 of those were defensive safeties. So you're really looking at 6 points offensively and half the season, basically, to this point. And I don't know. Why don't you kick it off? Because I could go in so many different directions. So tell me about your initial thoughts to the loss to the Saints, wherever you want to start off.
Yeah, and I sound like a broken record, but it begins and ends with the offensive line. I mean, you can point fingers at the quarterback, and he certainly did not play well. You can point fingers at the wide receivers who did not produce, at the running backs. And granted, there's no holes for them to run through, but at the same time, they're not breaking tackles. You go back to some of the tape last year, and Ramondre was breaking tackles. But I think it all starts with the horrid play of the offensive line. They're just, when we were talking on the phone the other day, I don't remember if it was Monday or Sunday, I said, Michael Hurley posted a really good picture. 1.3 seconds after the snap, right, Mac Jones is surrounded by Saints, just like on a jailbreak type of pass rush. in 1.3 seconds. I mean, come on, they have to do a better job of that. And as I told you, I'm worried about him being broken on by this. You know, when you face constant pressure, it begins to wear on you. And some of the things that we're seeing consistently from him, throwing off the back foot, you know, feeling pressure when it isn't there. We saw the same thing happen to David Carr, Derek's older brother, who I thought was a better quarterback than Derek. But he got ruined when he was in Houston because he saw the same thing, so much constant pressure.
I mean, we saw something similar even more recently with a guy like Sam Darnold seeing pressure that wasn't there.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, you know, he might recover from that because he's in a good situation. But, yeah, that's how quarterbacks can get ruined. And, you know, they don't trust anything that's in front of them at that point. And that's a bad way to be. And, you know, it's all from the offensive line. They have to do a better job of blocking.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, it does start up front. I mean, you can look at everything. I don't think they're doing anything well right now. The coaching's been bad. The schemes aren't great. The guys aren't getting separation on the outside. You know, they can't block anybody, as you said. They can't run the ball. They can't throw the ball. There's just really not a whole lot that they're doing well. And to your point, Mac Jones is a broken man right now. He, you know, just is. His body language is starting to not look good again. His footwork is terrible. If Mac has some time, I'm not asking for anything extraordinary. If he has some time and he can set his feet and step into the throw, we've seen him be an above average quarterback. Okay. Unfortunately, that window is just so small, but right now, plain and simple, he's not only is he, you know, he's been dealt a bad hand this year and last year. Okay, I think we can all agree that there's a lot going on. At the same time, the turnovers are killing him, and he's making plays that he just can't make. And it's starting to kind of rub off through some of his teammates too. I think you've heard is the coaching staff mentioned the turnovers about 10 times in the past week. David Andrews mentioned we got to stop turning the ball over. Hunter Henry talks about turnovers. Well, who's turning the ball over? I mean, it's really just Mac. And I just think it's just getting ugly. And then defensively, you were hanging your hat on, Steve, I don't know what that is in the microphone, but it's
it's a lifesaver.
You're killing me with that. But I would say defensively, you could hang your hat on this team playing good defense, playing good special teams, making some good coaching decisions. Well, right now, they're not playing good defense either. And the special teams haven't been good. I don't know what happened to Joe Cardona. Apparently, his ability to long snap is no longer because every single time his snaps have been high, they've had a missed kick or a bad punt. And they're having problems returning the ball. Again, defensively, their tackling has gotten worse. And I don't think it's an effort thing, Steve. I just think it's one of those things like one hand washes the other. They say, the best offense starts with a good defense. And well, a good defense could start with a relatively semblance of an offense, and they just don't even have that. So I think right now, Steve, I'm saying a lot of words to say this. Their problems that they have around this team are compounding each other, and it's really kind of filtered into every single phase of this team right now, and they're just flat out not playing good football.
No, they're a bad football team. I'm not saying they're going to be bad all season. They might right the ship. They may have to add a couple of pieces to do so.
Would you add to this team, or would you try to bring somebody else in at this point, like a player, or would you try mix up and just give someone else a shot? I'm not even talking about the quarterback. I'm talking about anyone. Like, do you go back to Calvin Anderson at right tackle and get instead of the Darian Lowe? Do you try Mike Onwenu at right tackle? Do you Jalen Mills tweeted out about only getting 10 snaps? I don't know if you saw that going around. Do you try him at somewhere in the secondary? I have no idea. Do you try to make in-house personnel moves and just switch it up, or are you trying to bring in somebody from the outside?
Well, I do a little bit of both, honestly. I mean, Calvin Anderson, they didn't even dress last week.
Yep.
So I'm wondering what's going on in practice where they don't even feel like he's a backup right now. You know, they have to do something because they're just not getting it done.
No, they're not. And to your point, saying they might not be bad all year. They might not, but if they don't win, I don't want to look too far ahead yet at this Raiders game, but if they don't win this next game, they could be staring 1-7 in the face because they have the Bills and the Dolphins right after that. And again, I'm not saying that those are automatic. I'm not saying those are automatic losses, but it just looks. I would say the projection would be bleak as of now for those teams. Okay, so let's just call a spade a spade. Okay, I think they have a good chance. I think they have as good a chance as any game to win against the Raiders. If you watch the Raiders game on Monday night, you know that they can be beat. Now they do have some good players on that side that could make it difficult. I mean, I've been worried about Max Crosby since Monday night's game, and I don't know who wouldn't be, especially given this offensive line situation. But you do have a chance to win this game. If you cannot, Steve, I'm starting to worry about where this team mentally will be. I don't think that they are checked out, okay? Because we haven't really seen that from a Patriots team as far as I can know. I mean, the 2009 quote from was it the Belichick documentary? What was that? I forget what it was.
Belichick and Brady on the sideline.
On the sidelines versus the Saints, actually.
Yeah.
Saying, Bill saying, I just can't get this team to play the way I need to, or, and he's talking about how frustrating he is. I have to think he's in a similar spot right now, because I do think that we've seen this team play worse than the sum of their parts. And we said that last year too. And I don't know, to me, that comes back to coaching. And I start with Bill Belichick. I think right now, Bill deserves a lot of criticism. And we can talk about that in a second. But to me, it's not just him. It's the whole coaching staff. I don't know. Adrian Clem, sorry, my work phone is just going bananas. Between your lifesaver wrapper, your alarm, my work phone.
Those are all text messages coming in one after another. I think everyone knows when we're doing a podcast and they all start texting me.
Yeah, that's what it is. So anyway, I don't know. I just think it's all coaching, the whole coaching staff right now. Adrian Clem was brought in to help fix the situation. Bill O'Brien on the sideline. I don't know if you saw this. He looked dejected during the Saints game. He looked so frustrated. And man, I'll tell you, I don't even know where to start with this team. And I know that a lot of Patriots fans are feeling the same way. And look, we have some people listening live. So if you're listening live right now, comment, please tell me what's your number one biggest issue with this team right now. And dang, if that's not a hard question to go ahead and try to answer, because there are some tough ones. Okay. And we're going to figure it out. Todd Mint writes in, players make plays. And he also writes in, so Bill forgot how to coach, or his approach outdated? I think it's really closer to the latter. Personally, I don't know if it's even necessarily outdated, Todd, but what I would say is I think in terms of how this roster was built, I think it was either short-sighted or not up to the modern game. And that we can have a debate on all those intricacies. I don't know if Steve will agree or not agree, but they've had a problem really the last several years, even going back into a little bit of Brady's, where they've had some really questionable offensive personnel decisions. And you can look at it from, we were confused why they didn't take a tackle in the draft. We were wondering, what the Jacoby Myers thing versus Juju Smith-Schuster, which really looks to be a huge issue right now. The Jonnu Smith thing, where it just didn't work out. Now he's back to making some semblance of plays in Atlanta. So it's like, why could two other franchises get something out of Jonnu, but the Patriots couldn't? I think from an offensive perspective, Todd, and to everyone else who's listening, and I don't know, Steve, what your thoughts are on this. I think from an offensive perspective, Julian Edelman said it on Colin Cowherd's show this week on FS1. He needs help. He needs help on the offensive side of the ball and right now, offensively, they're a total train wreck. And I think there's some issues defensively too, but I think they're overmatched offensively right now in the way the game is played.
Yeah, and going back to Todd's first comment there, I don't think his mode is outdated so much. It's just that he's made some questionable decisions in games where I think that, in the past, things probably would have worked out a little differently.
Mm-hmm.
And when stuff doesn't work, it's easy to second guess. But personnel-wise, I mean, defensively, they've had so many injuries. Because I thought the defense looked really good early in the season. And now the injuries are catching up to them, and they're trying to find combinations that work. And, it's just, it's, as you said, things compound. I think that, when the defense is on its game and, everyone was healthy, they held them in those early games, even though they lost those first two. I thought defensively they played really well. I mean, they held Miami to 24 points. The next week, Miami scored 70.
Yep.
So that 24-point game didn't look so bad in the rearview mirror. But offensively, I just think, again, it was they never had an offensive line together all spring, all summer, because of injuries, illness, whatever. It's taken its toll now because, you'll see one guy on one play make a great block, but everyone else fails.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's no continuity. There's no gelling out there. And, they really need that in the running game. This is a team that is not built to come from behind. They're built to, run the football and kill the clock. And when you can't run the football whatsoever, that just kills your offense. And then to compound it even more, they can't pass block anyone either. So it makes it harder on your skilled guys. We can talk about they don't have enough skill on the offensive side of the ball, and I won't argue that. But at the same time, they're not terrible players. It's just when your quarterback is, as we pointed out early in the show, at 1.3 seconds, he's getting swarmed under. That doesn't give those guys time to get it even into their routes. So, hopefully they'll find, Bill's talked about starting over. They'll find something that works to a semblance. I really fear for Vidarian Lowe this week going against Max Crosby. I mean, he's going to need some help out there. And, if it's a tight end staying in the block or a tight end chipping him off the snap, they need to do some stuff out there. This Raiders team really isn't that great. I mean, everyone was complaining watching the game on Monday night about Jacoby Myers this and Jacoby Myers that. They still only scored 17 points.
Right.
It's not a prolific offense. They've had trouble running the ball. And to the Jacoby Myers points, we were all wrong on that. I was all for Juju Smith-Schuster because I thought he was going to bring a lot more to the, yards after the catch type thing. But through five games,
I honestly would rather
non-existent.
At this point, I would rather see Kayshon Boutte and Demario Douglas just get more snaps, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know if Tyquan Thornton's going to play this week, but at least
I would play all three of them. I mean, at this point, what do you have to lose? You need something. You need to change something. I mean, you can't see Devontae Parker out there, and I know he's probably not going to go anywhere, but it's like Parker, Juju, these guys are just not getting any kind of one-on-one coverage. Like you got to beat something, you have to. Glenn chimes in, are we going to change the coach or change the players? I'll tell you right now, it's not Bill's style to change a coach during the season.
Well, I think he's talking about Bill.
Oh, I'll get to Bill. Bill is firmly on the hot seat, in my opinion. That's just, I don't know where you fall on this, Steve, but I think that depending on how this year goes, I honestly know that we've talked about it a little bit in the past, and I don't know how you come out of this. It's just too early to tell. I mean, we're only 5 games in. We're entering the 6th week. But if they do lose the next 3 games, hypothetically, you're 1-7, you're halfway through. The Crafts aren't going to fire Bill halfway through the year. They're not going to embarrass him like that. But if you win, let's say they win 5 games total the rest of the season, okay? So they go 5-12. I think that there's a conversation to be had there, and I think that's firmly on the table. I mean, you have to make some kind of aggressive change if the season continues the way it is. I mean, and I have people ask, or not people asking. I've seen people frustrated that the offense seems to be regressing. I don't know if they're regressing as much as that other teams are seeing what they're doing week in and week out. Now they have 5 games of film now to go through. So it's not like the Eagles week 1 where everyone's kind of feeling each other out, just trying to figure out what the other team's doing. The Dolphins were, right there too. And it's just so, it's just, and then it just kind of continues where you get more film out there. And then defenses are just not worried about what you have going on offense right now. I mean,
they don't respect the wide receivers.
Of course, and why would you? I mean, I wouldn't blitz. I wouldn't even blitz if I was another team right now. Why? You don't have to, because your 4 are probably going to beat who you got there. They flood the zones and you make sure no one beats you over the top. Not that you're really worried about it, but I mean, this team can't move the ball consistently well right now, and that's shooting themselves in the foot. And as Todd asked on the heels of this question from Glenn, it's just so hard to replace the guy. Meaning Bill. And I agree. I think what you need to do personally at this juncture, and I don't, Steve, I want your thoughts on this. At this moment, we still have 2/3 of the season to play out. So we'll continue to evaluate and talk about it as we go, because that's what we've been doing for the last 11 years. Okay. And then we'll talk about it at the end. But at this juncture right now, I think you're looking at the end of the Bill Belichick era in New England. And I think if you do that, you need to bring in, if that was to happen, I personally would like to see a whole new regime. I don't want to pass this to Gerard Mayo. I don't want to keep Matt Rowe. I want an entire new front office, an entire new coaching staff. That's how I would do it. I have no idea what they would do. And if Bill stays, I think that there's going to be some serious changing in the front office in some capacity. I think there has to be. And I don't think the Crafts would. I don't know what Bill would do with that, but I can't imagine with how Robert Kraft has made some comments the last couple of years, and the letter they sent out to the fans immediately following last season to now be where they are now. I can't imagine at this juncture, Steve, they do just absolutely nothing.
Well, jumping back to Glenn's question, which was a really good one, I do think they're going to try, because they're not going to tank. As many fans are advocating right now,
I would.
tank for Caleb. They're not going to do that. Belichick isn't going to tank. So they're going to continue to try to find, a way out of this, a way to dig themselves out of it. And I think it begins, with bringing in a tackle. And I've said to you, I think on the phone, Lyle Collins, he's out there. He can't be any worse than how badly Lowe is struggling right now at right tackle. He can't be. I mean, and then, it looks like the Broncos are going to bust up their team. get on the phone and get a Jerry Jeudy.
I would love to get Jerry Jeudy in some capacity. Now did you, by the way, hear Mark Schlereth's comments on the radio in Denver?
No, I did not.
Oh, he eviscerated Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy on the radio in Denver because he's an analyst down there. Obviously, played there, had a lot of success there, and he was just basically calling them out for a lack of effort. And I can't sit here and say I've watched every Denver Broncos snap. I can't tell you if what the effort level looks like or not. But I know that Jerry Jeudy's a talented player that between his Alabama ties with Mac and Bill, I think could probably figure out the offense here. And I think a fresh start would probably do him well. Now, on the same side of that coin, or I guess the opposite side of the coin, I would say, do you really invest draft assets to bring in someone like that? I mean, you do have a lot of money in free agency. There's a chance you could bring someone like that in after the year. Yeah, you could do that. And I think I could talk myself into both things, Steve. I could talk myself into the Patriots need to make a change. He could be available. He could have some ties that would make him a good fit here. Let's do it. I could also say, you know what? Let's just see who we got and the younger guys with Thornton, Douglas, Booty. Let's just see how it goes with them and try to get them as much reps as possible, see what you have. And if they do make a coaching change at the end of the year, if they do, then we'll let the new coach pick out the new groceries and go from there. I don't know.
Right. But, at the same time, if you're going to try to fix and right the ship, so to speak.
Yep.
We talked about Mac's confidence or lack of, at least it'll show him, as we talked about this offline, hey, look, we understand things aren't going good. It's snowball that's affecting everybody, but we're trying to bring the pieces in to right the ship. And I think that would be a confidence boost. Okay, we're bringing in a guy that he knows, played in the same system, and, it shouldn't take him any time at all to, get acclimated to this offense.
No, I agree 100%. I just want to let everyone know who's listening. Please subscribe to us on YouTube as well as Apple Podcasts. If you could like, share, leave us a review, it would mean a great deal to both of us. It keeps us high in the podcast rankings. It helps other Patriots fans find us. We would certainly appreciate that. Let's just step aside real quick, Steve, for podcast purposes and just take a quick break. And then we will be back right after this. All right, and we are back on Patriots 4th and 2. Again, Derek Havens, Steve Balestrieri here. Please, again, subscribe to us on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. We would greatly appreciate that. And be sure to check out all the great content on PatsFans.com, led by Ian Logue, who I just want to give a special shout out to. What's up, Ian?
The lower right-hand corner guy.
Steve, again, as we continue our Patriots therapy for those who are joining us live and those who will be listening later, is there anything, before we preview the Raiders game, which I want to get to here shortly, I know we did a very weak recap of the Saints game. Honestly, I didn't think there was much to recap. Plus, we're doing the show a day later than usual on Thursday instead of Wednesday, and the time has passed. I think people all understand that there's not a whole lot to take away from that game. So that's why we kind of spent, and I figured this would happen. It kind of divulged into, and it kind of evolved into this Patriots therapy session as we talk about so many different issues on this team. Is there something that we haven't talked about, that you wanted to bring up? And if no big deal.
No, I mean, we touched on everything. I mean, the special teams has not been good. They've been going, south. Joe Cardona, I mean, this is a guy that was like, we never mentioned his name for years because everything was exactly where it needed to be. Correct. And, so many bad snaps this year. I don't know what's going on with him. And it's affected the punting game. It's definitely affected the field goal game. The return game, obviously they're missing Marcus Jones, but it's been non-existent. they're muffing punts. I mean, it's just terrible. And then to add insult to injury, Matthew Slater gets 2 penalties. I mean, that never happens. So, that the defense being all banged up, the offense we've gone over ad nauseum, but it seems to be the same recurring theme there. They just need to basically get their heads out of their 4th point of contact and start playing the way they're capable of. I mean, I went back and looked at that first game against the Eagles. I mean, there was so much confidence even after that loss. I mean, Mac threw for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, and it seemed like, okay, this offense aren't world beaters, but they can be competitive, and they still have that in them. They just need to play a heck of a lot better.
They certainly do. They certainly do. And I agree with the special teams, the defense. Special teams to me, I mean, look, both units are banged up, as you mentioned. Special teams to me is more of an execution thing. Like, I see comments, a couple people talking about like Joe Judge. Like, okay, I don't think this is a Joe Judge issue. I think this is a like Joe Judge doesn't affect Joe Cardona snapping the ball like he's been doing so well, which is why I don't know if he still is, but at least at one point he was the highest paid long snapper. So at what point is that just a Joe Cardona execution issue? I don't know about the returning, but it's like penalties and things like that. It just seems everything just seems off balance, Steve. It just seems off balance, the entire team. And I don't know if it's one of those when it rains it pours situations. I don't know if it's just one of those things where they're just out of sync, but they are off balance is the best way that I can put it right now. And it's affected literally every part of their organization, every part of their football teams. You talk about 3 phases. The funniest thing about what I want to mention real quick before we go to the Raiders is for so many weeks, it was for the first few weeks and going back to last year, it was all Mac Jones. You either were a Mac Jones person or you weren't a Mac Jones person. And if the team struggled, it was all Mac Jones's fault. And, or a good majority of it was. And if the team played pretty well, it was like, oh, Mac Jones did this, Mac Jones did that. It was a lot of that. I'm here to tell people who are listening, if you just despise Mac Jones or if you really like Mac Jones, I don't care what side of the coin you're on. I can assure you this issue, he's part of the problem. He's been bad, but I assure you every part of this team is bad right now.
Yeah.
I promise you, it's not just Mac. It is every single part of this team is bad. Again, the Patriots are right now the worst rushing team in the NFL. They have the worst average before contact and the worst average after contact as a running back. Mike Onwenu and David Andrews are graded out basically at about 50%, which is horrific for both of them. 2 of your best linemen. Your first-round pick from 2 years ago with Cole Strange can't stay healthy right now. Trent Brown, who basically held out for more money, isn't really doing anything. Right tackle's been an absolute turnstile. The receiver issues we've talked about. The quarterback can't stop turning the ball over, and his mechanics have gone down by the wayside. I mean, and then defensively and special teams we talked about. So my PSA to everybody listening is you can be a Mac Jones fan or not be a Mac Jones fan, but if you're dead set on it's just the quarterback, I promise you're wrong. And I'm not, that's not a holier than thou, higher, high horse looking take. It's just a Bailey Zappi's not going to fix the situation, or Malik Cunningham.
Tucker just made a point I was getting ready to. The defense hasn't been able to generate any turnovers. And
they're, I believe, the worst turnover margin team in the league right now.
They're the worst in a lot of team aspects right now. And that is another one. I mean, they're not getting turnovers. And, they should have thrown the challenge flag on that one last week because I thought that was an interception by Duggar, but what they really need.
So did he.
Yeah. What they really need this week is for either the defense or the special teams to make a splash play, score a touchdown, and get some energy injected back into the entire team.
100%. I mean, if there was a week where they could use that, it would be this one and this one early. They need. I don't think they believe in themselves, and this team used to be so good at just like the Patriots mystique of just like going into a fight. I felt like opponents, and yeah, some of that was Brady, of course, but I mean, like as a team, they used to almost win the game before it started. It just, especially at home. I mean, they're playing with almost no confidence right now, and you can see it. They just go into it just expecting to have these kind of issues. And that, to me, is one of the biggest issues that they have as a team. But let's go into the Raiders preview, Steve. All right, we have about 10 minutes or so left of the show. So let's talk about the Raiders. I thought Bill made an interesting comment about them having top five or five different guys that are top five in their position across the league. I thought that was an interesting thing, talking about Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs, talking about Max Crosby, and both kickers, Daniel Carlson, and AJ Cole, I believe, the punter. So very complimentary of their roster. I do think that the team, the Raiders, do have a lot of talent. They also are underperforming. It seems like almost every game, I don't know what it is about Josh, Steve, such a great coordinator. Every single game you watch the Raiders, Josh makes some kind of coaching decision that I just don't really get. I just don't really get. I mean, it looked like, I don't know. It was one of those situations where they flashed to the box and Mark Davis clearly said something, it looked like he said a-hole or something like that. I have no idea if he was talking about someone in the crowd, if he was talking about Josh McDaniels, someone on the other team.
I think he was talking about Josh.
I think so too. I'll put it this way. We're not a sports, we're a sports podcast, but we're not a sports talk radio podcast. But if it was, I'd be running with that. I would be running with that hard. But yeah, the Raiders they're really not performing well. I do think that they have some talent, though. And it'll be interesting to see if the Patriots can stop them. I mean, they're going to have to start with Devontae Adams, Steve, on the offensive side of the ball. And
Josh
we know
Jacobs.
Both teams have a ton of familiarity. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays into it. Bill has typically struggled against some of his former assistants or coaches or anything. So I'm curious to see how the matchup plays out, Steve. Give me your opening thoughts on the Raiders, Steve.
Well, I watched the game on Monday night, and again, I was seeing all the comments on social media. And the really strange thing about all of that was that if you look at the first 5 games of the season, the Patriots have actually gained more yardage offensively than the Raiders have. And they've given up less yardage than the Raiders have. And both of them are among the bottom teams in turnover differential. The Patriots -8, the Raiders -7.
Yep.
And so, looking at the grand scheme of things, this is a game that should be winnable. Now, we've talked about all the issues, but, a lot of fans are putting the Raiders on a pedestal that they don't belong, simply because how bad the Patriots have struggled. But this is a game they should actually win. I'm not going to go out on a limb there just yet, but I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at the Raiders in totality. They've struggled a lot too. Now they beat the Packers last week. I thought they played fairly well in that. And again, that decision by Josh McDaniels to kick a field goal or attempt a field goal when they had a 4th and 1 that incensed Mark Davis. And I was thinking the same thing. You have to go for it there. I mean, you just have to. And then compounding it is they missed. So,
I mean, hey, look at Bill Belichick punting from the 40 at 24, down 24-0.
Yeah, I mean, he basically was. Yeah, he was thrown in the towel at that point.
Yeah. So I don't know. I wanted to draw that comparison.
Yeah, I mean, and again, watching that, I was shocked by that. I mean, you have to go for it there. I mean, granted, you're not going to win the football game. No one was expecting a miracle finish. but you want to, go into the next week with something to build off of. Say, hey, look, we were, getting punched in the mouth all game long, but we put together this drive. We made a 4th down. We went and scored some points. Let's dwell on that instead of everything else that we've done wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, this is a game they should win.
I agree. As far as our 3 keys go, Steve, for me, I personally, this is going to sound, these 3 keys are going to be incredibly simple. The first one goes into what we talked about, and something you said earlier about the defense or the special teams need to have some kind of spark. They need to give some team kind of the energy. And so my first key is something that we talked about before, but if it was ever true, it could be not more true this week, is they need to start fast this week. The Patriots desperately need, whether it's a drive that ends in a touchdown, a big play that sets them up for a big touchdown, they need to either score some points or have a big turnover early and inject some life into this team. They're playing like zombies out there, and they could really use that momentum, big time. My second thing would be, you can't let Max Crosby control this game. You have to figure out whether that's Pharaoh Brown staying inside to block on his side, whether that's playing with 6 offensive linemen, max protecting and only having a couple of guys run routes. So be it. The last thing you want to do is have him control this game, because the way Max Jones has turned the ball over the last 2 weeks, it's a recipe for disaster. With Max Crosby coming straight down the barrel at him, and you can almost feel that strip fumble coming. So to me, it's like you can't let Crosby control the game. And the third key for me is, you just talked about it. These 2 teams have been terrible with turnover margins. Something tells me in a game like this where both teams kind of stink, yeah, the Patriots might be worse. Okay, whatever. We can talk about that. I think both teams stink. It usually comes down to who's going to stink less, and that's going to start with the turnover, Steve, I think. So I think the Patriots need to win the turnover battle here. So who can be the least smelliest? This is why you tune in, because you're not going to get analysis like that anywhere else. Steve, give me your 3 keys.
Oh, that's awesome, dude. Who's going to stink less? My, how the mighty have fallen.
Yes, this is a different version of Patriots 4th and 2 than we used to do.
But yeah, I agree with you. I think they need a splash turnover / touchdown from either their special teams or their defense this week. They have to get something to energize them. The Raiders have given up 15 sacks in 5 games. That's 3 a game. The Patriots have only allowed 10 sacks. Now, Mac Jones has been under siege, for 5 games. But, the Raiders haven't been doing a great job of protection either. So, again, they need a much better pass rush than they had last week. They blitzed a lot, and they still weren't getting pressure on a ho-hum offensive line. They need to do a better job of that. I think you have to figure out some way to run the damn football. Excuse my language. Miguel, I put $1 in the jar. The running game has been so non-existent. And for a team that wants to run the football, that's just a bad recipe and makes everything else worse. And third, I think, it's not only turnovers, but you have to get the young guys involved in offensive. If they decide to activate Boutte this week or Tyquan Thornton, get those guys in the mix. The guys they had out there last week just aren't getting it done. Mm-hmm. And, I know Demario Douglas is out with a concussion and same with Juju. Get those younger guys involved in the offense. And, Bourne, Boutte, and the tight ends need to be much more involved in this. I mean,
they certainly do.
Yeah. And, that's it. I mean, it's pretty simple, but it's been extremely hard for them through 5 weeks because they're not generating anything. I mean, since that second game, the offense has just gone steadily downhill to 0.
Yeah, no, it's progressively going down the other way. I'm not so sure. Todd writes in Gesicki with all a bunch of exclamation marks. Yeah, my prediction of him having 10 touchdowns this season is looking worse and worse by the week. I'd settle for them to score 10 touchdowns collectively at this point. So we'll see.
Maybe this is the week Gesicki lights it up, in the red zone. Let's hope.
Let's hope. I mean, I do think that with Demario Douglas likely to miss this game, I don't know if he will for sure, but if he does, I really am interested to see what Kayshon Boutte brings to the table. He was there week 1. He wasn't able to get his foot in bounds a couple of times, or his second foot in bounds, especially towards that end. And we haven't seen him since. I understand that there are other receivers and you have to have some inactives, but I just want to see more from other guys at this point. I just want to see other guys out there. If they want to keep trotting out the same veterans who are going to put the same output together, I need to see a little bit more energy, a little bit more burst. And that would be my final thoughts, Steve. Shake it up. Let's see what it's going to be this week. And then I do have one other final thought too, but anything from you, Steve?
Well, we're going to do a prediction.
Oh, yeah. I guess we probably should do a prediction, huh?
We do one every week. And by the way, it's 12 years, not 11.
Oh, yeah, true. It's been 12 years and I just screwed it up. So there's a Goldman for you.
Yeah.
Shout out to Russ.
Russ's ears are itching right now because he's like, hey, Derek just made a Goldman.
I did. I'm sure I'll hear about it too. Before we do a prediction, Steve, I thought it was interesting. And Mike Reese was on the did you see my tweet? I tweeted this quote out yesterday. And Mike Reese, I thought was very interesting. He was on the Zolak and Bertrand show on 98.5 in Boston. And I just think that I think Mike Reese, who's someone who's so balanced in his coverage, I thought this was an interesting take from him. He goes, for Mac, I think it's fortunate that there isn't another quarterback on the roster that the coach's view would be an upgrade, because if there was, we might not be having the discussion that he would be starting on Sunday. And I got a lot of sarcastic tweets back being like, well, isn't any quarterback in the NFL thankful there's not someone better behind him? That's not the spirit in which the commentary was said. People were talking about if Mac was going to be pulled. And, based on conversations that I had with a couple of different people who cover the team, the Patriots practice on Tuesday this week, which they haven't done all year. Why was that? And a lot of people think that the coaching staff wanted to take Monday and get together collectively and discuss personnel decisions, including the quarterback. And I think based on the conversations and based on kind of reading between what the quote, and that was just one of his comments, but one of his quotes of Mike Reese, on the radio show appearance yesterday, I think that they said Mac Jones is our best chance to win right now. I do think if he goes out there and turns the ball over a lot this Sunday, Steve, I do think we could be looking at a Will Grier or a Bailey Zappi or somebody else starting, because I think they're looking at it right now and saying, yeah, we stink everywhere, but we can't keep having the same turnover issues that we're having these last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, and again, Mike is the most balanced guy out there. He chooses his wording carefully about things.
Sure.
But he's dead on with most of his feelings about how things are going to go. And I agree with that. I mean, they don't have anyone they feel gives them a better chance than Mac, because they've seen what Mac can do in this offense when things are working right. And with nothing working right, he's definitely struggling.
Oh, yeah. No, there's no other way to put it. Steve, prediction for the game as we wrap the show.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to show me they can start winning some of these games before I'm predicting them again. And I'm the guy that was so bullish on them this season, but I just don't see it happening right now. I don't think the Raiders are a great team, but right now with the offense, and unless we see some really big changes from last week to this week, don't see it happening. So I'm saying 24-6 Las Vegas.
Steve, I came in relatively cool today, if they go out and only score 6 points and they lose by 18, you're going to see me with an absolute flamethrower next week. People will need to adjust your volume accordingly, okay? Because I will absolutely torch.
I hope I'm wrong.
I hope you're wrong too, because that would mean they would have scored, quick math, 14 points in the last 14 quarters, and you would see me just literally on the edge. So let's hope you're wrong. I do think the Patriots, I do agree with your point. The Patriots need to prove to me that they can win these type of games. Right now, they're not winning these coin flip games. Last week was a coin flip game, and they got blown out at home 34-0. What's it going to look like on the road? To me, I'm looking at Steve. I think probably somewhere in like the 20-13, 20-16 Raiders is kind of where I'm leaning right now.
Hey, Todd, I'm putting that in all caps on your score prediction contest.
Yeah, I can't share that, Todd, but it did make Steve laugh pretty good, and it's good. I'd like to share that as well. But yeah, a little sugar honey iced tea. I agree. All right, we got to wrap the show because I have another appointment I got to get to. But again, everyone, thank you so much for everyone who was listening live. We had several people interact. Todd, Glenn. We didn't hear from Claire, which is a little concerning. I don't know where Claire is. It's around dinner time for her, so I figured we'd chime in. I know Joel Shapiro, Michael Chavez checked in. I want to thank everyone who was listening in through Facebook, through YouTube, through Twitter, or through X. Excuse me. I just want to say thank you again to everyone who's interacting. It always makes the show a great deal of fun. Thank you again to Ian Logue, and be sure to check out PatsFans.com for some great content. And again, subscribe to us on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. Like, share, leave us a review. Keeps us high in the podcast ranking so other Patriots fans can find us. For Steve Balestrieri, I am Derek Havens. Thank you again for joining us this week on Patriots 4th and 2, and we will see you guys next week.